Hi everyone, welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith. In this video, we're going to learn the 3 to 5 player game Sheriff of Nottingham by Arcane Wonders. Now times are tough. As a merchant, you're trying to bring your mostly legal goods into Nottingham, and this pesky sheriff, he keeps stopping carts looking for contraband. I mean, how are you supposed to make a mostly honest living under these harsh conditions? Now, as sheriff, you just know those good-for-nothing merchants are trying to sneak their contraband past your guards and skirt noble Prince John's taxes. How dare they? I mean, on the other hand, if they were willing to line your pockets with a small gold donation, you might find it in your big heart to let them go past. So in the game, players will be trading roles as merchants and sheriff, trying to gather the most wealth. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. First, each player takes one of the merchant stands and matching colored bag, along with coins totaling 50. 120, 5 5s, and 5 1s are recommended. And as I'll be setting up a 3-player game in this example, I can return these other 2 merchant stands and bags back to the box. This bank tray holds the remaining coins, and a player can be designated to distribute and make change for players during the game. These are goods cards, and there's a lot of them, so I've just laid out a good sampling here of everything that you're going to find. Legal goods have a green border and green banner under their name, and they're comprised of apples, bread, cheese, and chickens. Contraband has a red border and red banner under its name, and you'll find mead, crossbows, silk, and pepper. Royal goods are contraband as well, and that's why they also have the red border. But they have a golden banner under their name. You can match these up with other legal or illegal goods to really boost your score at the end of the game. On the back of the rulebook, you'll also find a breakdown of the card distribution if that interests you. For your first game, you may play the basic version by removing the 12 royal goods, but we'll leave them in during this video. If there are only 3 players, remove all cards with the 4+ symbol in the bottom left-hand corner. Now shuffle the cards, dealing 6 to each player, putting the rest into the center space of the included tray. Then create 2 face-up discard piles on either side by dealing 5 cards into each. The discard piles can be examined at any time during the gameplay by any of the players. Now the player with the most actual cash on their person is given the Sheriff of Nottingham marker. And that's the setup. The game is played over a series of rounds, with one player acting as the sheriff and the rest as merchants. Then at the end of each round, the responsibilities of the sheriff are passed directly to the player on the left. You keep playing rounds until everyone has performed duties as the sheriff twice, or in the case of a 3-player game, 3 times. Then the players total up their wealth, and whoever has the most wins. Each round is broken into 5 phases. The first is the market phase. The sheriff will not participate in this phase, so the player directly to the left of the sheriff starts by looking at the cards in their hand, and then can pick up to 5 of them to discard. So let's say I chose 4 of these that I want to get rid of. I don't immediately place them in the discard piles. Instead, I put them face down in front of me. Now I'm going to draw back up until I have a total of 6 cards in my hand again. You may draw from any combination of the 2 discard piles or the draw pile, but once you start taking cards from here, you are no longer allowed to take discarded goods. So in other words, take all the face-up goods you want first, before taking any of the face-down ones. So as an example, let's say I decided to remove these 4 goods from my hand. First, I put them face down in front of me, and now I need to draw back up so I have 6 cards in my hand once again. Now remember, you can look through the discard piles anytime you want, and earlier I checked, and underneath this silk I knew there was a cheese I wanted. Now I can't just take the cheese. First I have to take the silk on top, and of course, I'm going to be explaining to the sheriff, I have no interest in this silk. I have no plans of bringing this through the city gates. Don't worry. I'm just taking this because I have to in order to get this very legal cheese that I want. That's 2 of the cards. I need 2 more. Let's say I decide to take the 3rd one from the draw pile. Well, now that I've taken from the draw pile, I can't take from these discards. My 4th one also has to come from here. Now I take the cards that I set aside earlier, and I place them face up in one of the discard piles, and I can put them in any order I want. Let's say I wanted to bury this chicken because I thought someone was really trying to get chickens. I'll put them in this stack over here and leave this illegal good exposed to perhaps tempt one of the other merchants to take it. You'll see the risks and rewards associated with legal and illegal goods, but now the next merchant to the left does the same thing until all the players have completed their market phase. The market phase is optional. A merchant might decide they don't want to get rid of any of the goods that they had. Sometimes a merchant will choose to get rid of goods just to show the sheriff, hey, look at these illegal goods I'm discarding. I would never attempt to sneak anything bad past you, Sheriff. Once the market phase is completed, then it's time to move on to the loading the merchant bag phase. Once again, the sheriff will not be participating in this, but all of the other merchants at once will now pick from 1 to 5 of the goods in their hand, no more, no less, to put into their merchant bag. Now I've decided that I want to put these 3 goods into my sack, and it's very important. You're not allowed to show any of the other players what you're putting in your bag. Now I have some time here. I could decide, you know what, Sheriff, I've had a change of heart. I was going to put this illegal good in, but then after some soul searching, I've decided to swap it out and put this much more legal good in here. You can continue to do this until you snap the bag shut. Once it's snapped shut, you're locked in. You can no longer make changes to the contents of your bag. Next is the declaration phase. Starting with the merchant to the left of the sheriff, they will look the sheriff in the eye and declare what goods they have in their sack that they're trying to bring into Nottingham. And as they do that, they will pass the sheriff their sack. Each player does this in clockwise order. Now here's the catch. You don't have to tell the truth. Now there are 2 exceptions to that. First of all, you do have to be honest about how many goods you're bringing in. So if I have 3 cards in my bag, I have to say, Sheriff, I'm bringing in 3 goods. And you have to declare them as a single legal good. So no matter what I have in my sack, I have to say that they are all one of a legal type. For example, Sheriff, I'm bringing in 3 chickens. Now, this could be 2 chickens and a silk, or not chicken at all. It's entirely up to you what kind of a lie and how big of a lie you're actually going to end up making. But you must declare the exact number of goods and declare it as a legal good. Let me give you a fuller example. Good morning, Sheriff. You remember me. I've got my 3 cows here with me and the 3 cheese that me and my wife just made. We want to bring this to Prince John. And you know, I remember when you were just a little sheriff and you've grown up and you're so great and grand and noble. I like to think of us, if I may be so bold, as friends. And I would never lie to my friends. This is a sack containing 3 cheese. So one of the tricks is that if you can sneak contraband past the sheriff, at the end of the game, it could potentially be worth quite a bit of gold. The problem is you can never lawfully declare that you're bringing in contraband. You always have to lie about it. And if you get caught in a lie, there are consequences. So how do you get caught in a lie? Well, that's next. Once all the players have passed in their sack to the sheriff, it's time for the inspection phase. The merchants are going to be allowed into Nottingham. The question is, how many of these bags is the sheriff going to open up and inspect the contents of first? So the sheriff now decides which bags to open and in which order, or to not open any of the bags at all. The sheriff may even simply threaten to open a bag, perhaps tugging on the flap a little bit in order to inspire one of the merchants to offer the sheriff a generous bribe to be allowed to enter Nottingham without having their bag opened. A bribe can be any combination of a merchant's gold or legal and contraband goods that they have stored at their market stand. And we'll talk about how you store goods a little bit later. They can even offer goods that they claim to currently have in their bag, or make promises of future favors. For example, a bribe might go something like this. Sheriff, you have got to be the wisest person I know, and the more time I spend talking to you, the smarter I feel. In fact, I may have, in my stupidity, have forgotten that at the back, the very, very, very back of my cart, there was an illegal good stuck in there from the previous owner, and I was meaning to clean that out, and I forgot to. I apologize. Human forgetfulness, it's a common error. And I assure you, if I was ever in a position of authority and you found yourself in my position, I would not hold you up over such a silly moment of forgetfulness. In fact, I'd like to offer you additionally this 5 coin to help you see past my error. Let's say for a moment that the sheriff accepted my pathetic attempt at a bribe. Well, the yellow merchant could pipe up and say, "Sheriff, forget his deal. I'll offer you 10 gold right now to open his sack." Either way, the sheriff has to decide which bags are going to be opened and which will remain closed. Let's say for a moment that the yellow merchant is allowed to pass without being inspected. The bag is handed back to the yellow merchant, and then any deals that they had agreed upon become binding. And in the case of the blue merchant, let's say the sheriff says, no, I don't trust you for a second. You have contraband in here. I am going to open your bag. Well, once the sheriff opens the sack, then any deals that they had been discussing are no longer required to be fulfilled by the blue merchant. To prevent the negotiation period from going for an extended and indefinite period of time, the rulebook provides this optional time limit of 1 minute per merchant. So in a 3-player game, there's always going to be 2 merchants, so the sheriff would have a total of 2 minutes to negotiate with both of the merchants. And the sheriff can decide how to divide up that time, maybe trying to keep it even, giving about a minute to each merchant, or spending the entire 2 minutes just talking to one of the merchants. If you're using the timer and the time runs out, then any bags that haven't been opened can no longer be opened by the sheriff. And the sheriff can go back and forth on whether or not he or she wants to open a merchant's sack. But as soon as the snap comes undone, negotiations are over with that merchant. This bag is being inspected. If the sheriff allows you to pass, you immediately open up your sack and then place all legal goods around your market stand. There's a spot for chicken, cheese, bread, and apples. The yellow merchant had 3 apples, and they can be placed like this. All of the players are allowed to know how many of each type of legal goods you have, so it's good form to leave them staggered like this. You don't actually show anyone the contraband that you brought through the gates. Instead, you leave it face down and place it here at the top of your market stand. Now, players are allowed to know how many contrabands you have, so these you might want to stagger as well. Additionally, the sheriff and all the other merchants now realize that you succeeded in bringing contraband into Nottingham. If the sheriff does open your bag, and you were telling the truth, that is to say, you had exactly what you said you did in your bag, the sheriff player must pay you gold equal to the penalty value on each of those legal goods in your bag. That penalty value is shown here in the bottom right-hand corner of each good. I said I had 3 cheeses, Sheriff, and sure enough I did, so the sheriff would need to pay me 6 gold from his supply. Then you would take these items and place them around your market stand in the appropriate spaces. Okay, but that wasn't actually what was in my bag. In my bag was 2 cheeses and 1 silk. If you were lying and didn't have exactly what you said you did, any legal goods you did declare truthfully are allowed into the market. Well, I did say I had 3 cheeses. 2 of these are cheese, so I collect them and put them around my market as usual. Any other goods, legal or not, I have to pay the penalty for. So in this case, I'd need to pay the sheriff 4 gold. But even if it was a legal good, what if instead I'd had an apple in there? I would still have to pay the penalty of 2 gold to the sheriff. The sheriff then takes all of the confiscated goods and places them into one of the discard piles in the order of his or her choosing. If you ever can't pay a penalty that you owe due to a shortage of gold, then you must pay legal goods from your stand equal to the difference, using its value shown here. Now, this may mean having to pay back more than you owe, but you don't get change in return. So if I owed someone 2 gold, I would pay them the 1 that I have. I still owe them 1 more. I'm going to have to give them this cheese, which is actually worth 3. So it's almost like I lost 2 additional gold. And if you run out of legal goods to pay, then you must reveal and pay with contraband. So I have some contraband here. Let's say now I owed someone 3 gold. This one is actually worth 6. So again, that's really painful. Any goods that you give to someone in this way are then placed around their merchant stand. If you ever run out of gold and goods and you owe someone money, your debt is forgiven. But this also means you won't be able to offer gold or goods as bribes to the sheriff. Now remember, I mentioned you can offer future favors and even items in your bag as part of a bribe to the sheriff. Future favors, unlike other promises, are not binding. So you can say, "Sheriff, next time I'm sheriff, I'll let you through," and then absolutely go right ahead and inspect their bag anyway. Likewise, if you promise a sheriff certain goods from your bag, you only have to give them to the sheriff if they actually were in your bag. For example, let's say I promised you, the sheriff, a cheese. And then when I opened my bag, "Oh, I'm sorry, Sheriff, I had no cheese." In that situation, you don't have to give the sheriff anything. Now let's say for a moment that you promised the sheriff contraband from your bag. Normally, when you take contraband out of your bag, you don't show anyone. You put it face down beside your market. In this case, though, you need to prove to the sheriff that you aren't lying and that you really don't have, say, any crossbows. In which case, you would just privately show your contraband to the sheriff to prove that you're not lying, and then, again, you don't have to give the sheriff anything. After the inspection is over, it's now the end of the round phase. If every player has been the sheriff twice, or 3 times in the case of a 3-player game, then the game is over. Otherwise, starting with the player to the left of the sheriff, in clockwise order, all of the merchants are going to draw back up until they have 6 goods in hand again. I only have 3, so I'm going to be taking 3 more cards. These must be drawn from the face-down draw pile. If the draw pile is ever completely depleted and you need more cards, then you remove all but the top 5 cards from each of the discard piles, shuffle them together, and create a new draw deck. Once everyone has refilled their hands, the sheriff token is passed to the player on the left, and you can start a new round. Now, if it is the end of the game, it's time to score. The first thing you do is you just get rid of all the cards in your hand. They're not going to be worth anything, so you can just discard them. And then you reveal all your contraband. To calculate your wealth, you add together all of your coins. So here I have 17. Then you add in the value of your goods. So this provides me with another 3 gold for my cheese, 4 for my chicken, and a total of 6 from my apples. And then my contraband is contributing another 13 gold to my score. And there are bonus points for being the king or queen of a good. The player who delivered the most or second most of each good is declared the king or queen of those goods, respectively. And then you get the associated bonuses, which are shown here on the market. For example, if you have the most apples, you'll collect an additional 20 points. And if you have the second most apples, you'll get another 10 points. And this is where the royal goods can come in quite handy. Not only are they worth 4 gold, but they also count as 2 apples. Now, if there is a tie for the king bonus, don't award the queen bonus, and instead, total the king and queen bonus together and then divide it equally amongst the tied players, rounding down. If there's only a tie for the queen bonus, divide it equally amongst the tied players. Once players have totaled their score, the player with the most wealth wins. Now, if there's a tie, the tied player with the most legal goods is the winner. And if there's still a tie, then the tied player with the most contraband is the winner. And that's how you play Sheriff of Nottingham. Now, there are a couple of options you have. For example, if you're concerned that someone might be tempted to card count, or you just want to prevent that from happening, before you begin the game, randomly remove 10 of the goods. Also, if you'd like to give the merchants a little more control and create some challenges for the sheriff, increase the good hand size from 6 to 7. And of course, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. We won't be doing a full playthrough of Sheriff of Nottingham, but I would like to invite you to look in the description of this video. You're going to find a link there that will take you over to our friends at Board Game Replay, where I was invited to join them for a game of Sheriff of Nottingham, and they have some highlights there from that playthrough, and I think if you watch that, you'll get a very good sense of how the gameplay works. But until the next episode, thanks for watching.